Hi, I'm George the Weather Dad, and today we're going to tackle a question that was brought to my attention by John down on Fort Myers Beach. He lives down there, very much concerned about the very warm waters that are right along the peninsula of Florida and how that's going to affect the hurricane season. Now keep in mind, Fort Myers was ground zero with Hurricane Ian last year, really messed up the island, so there's a lot of jumpy people down in the state of Florida right now, and we're going to be tackling that here in just a second. Now we're in August, and you can see here this chart. This is where we really start ramping up the possibility of seeing a tropical storm and or hurricane in the Atlantic Basin as well as the Gulf of Mexico. We peak there on September 10th. Now you may be asking yourself here in the Midwest, how does that affect me? Why should I really care? Well, take a look at this map here. The red areas is where hurricanes will come ashore, and that's where the major impact will occur and destruction if a strong hurricane, in fact, does come across in this area. Then we have yellows and blues. Notice in the Midwest here and the Great Lakes, we have blue, and that extends all the way to Southern California. Now, in this area, you're not affected by the Atlantic Basin, but mainly the Pacific. If a storm develops out there and moves towards the east, you could see some flooding potential there. And that's really where the concern is for the Midwest and mainly these areas in blue. Not necessarily strong winds, but the tremendous amount of moisture, tropical moisture coming up from the Gulf with these systems could produce some rather intense flooding across most of this area. So even though we're going to be talking around this area mainly as far as the storms are concerned, those of us here in the Midwest also have to keep a weather eye out as well. Now, as far as those temperatures are concerned, the dark shaded areas that you see here are temperatures of 90 degrees and higher, and you can see it, there's the Gulf Stream up along the Atlantic seaboard. When we talk about the Gulf Stream, that's what we're talking about there, but everybody else definitely well into the 80s. In fact, right now, most of the coastal areas of Florida, temperatures are in the upper 80s and 90s, and that's pretty close to normal, maybe a few degrees warmer than normal. But right off Miami coast, there was a report of water temperature of 100 degrees. So these water temperatures are very, very warm. Hurricanes love warm water. In fact, they need warm water of 80 degrees and higher to grow. That's their food, and you can see here all the way across much of the Atlantic Basin. But let me show you this map here as we expand out. There's Florida, and these warm temperature waters extend all the way to Africa. And we're going to start seeing this area over the next months become a little bit more active. But I want to bring your attention to this area right here in the Central Pacific, equatorial waters. Remember, I had this on another weather classroom, El Nino. These are the warm equatorial waters here. Why is that important? Because these are producing what we call wind shear, winds from west to east, and hurricanes hate wind shear. As they build up, the wind shear cuts them in half and pretty much kills them. So as long as El Nino is in place and continues to push those strong winds to the east, we're in pretty good shape here as far as the hurricane season. However, if a storm spins up and gets into the Gulf underneath these winds, that could be a big problem. We're going to keep an eye on that as we go through the next couple of months. Now, right now, we do have a little bit of a spin up there in the central Atlantic, but it's moving up towards the north and then eventually towards the northeast. And that's, again, because of those El Nino winds, and this thing will pretty much just dissipate over the next couple of days. But for the most part, for the next week or so, we're in pretty good shape here in the Atlantic. That's today's weather classroom. I'm George, the Weather Dad.